Benny Carter, alto saxophonist, trumpeter, composer, arranger, conductor, a real Renaissance man of modern music.
Well, I've managed to get around, and as I say, I guess my big word is enjoyable, because I've enjoyed all of it, and at this point it's more and more where I say, if it's not going to be fun, let's don't do it.
Benny Carter.
On August 8, 1907, one of the most important figures in 20th century jazz was born. He was a man who, for over 6 decades, occupied a unique place in American music. He was a performer, band leader, a composer, and a titan of jazz in many ways, a man whose contributions in jazz history can never be overlooked. As a soloist, he, along with Johnny Hodges, was the model for swing-era alto saxophonists. He was unique in his ability to double on trumpet, which he played in an equally distinctive style. In addition, he was an accomplished clarinetist, a man who recorded proficiently on piano and trombone. As an arranger also, he helped chart the course of big band jazz, and his compositions such as When Lights Are Low and Blues in My Heart became jazz standards. His career was remarkable for both its length and its consistently high musical achievements. From his first recordings in the 1920s to his youthful-sounding improvisations in the 1990s, and his pure-toned, impeccably phrased performances made him one of the 2 preeminent alto saxophonists in jazz. Nicknamed the King by fellow musicians early in his career, he was beloved not only for his musical genius, but also for his reserved, dignified and modest personality. His name, Bennett Lester Carter. Born on August 8, 1907, he was an African-American jazz saxophonist, clarinetist, trumpeter, composer, arranger and band leader. Carter made major musical contributions to the world of film and television, and his musicianship and personality won him the respect of fellow artists and audiences in every continent. This week's edition of People in History looks at the life and times of an African-American man who played a pivotal role in promoting the alto saxophone as a lead solo instrument in jazz bands, a man whose combination of highly developed talents as composer, arranger, band leader, and soloist on a variety of instruments was unmatched in the jazz world. Bennett Carter.
Well, I can't say any particular one, but if it's anything that's involved in the music business or music industry, I find it very, very rewarding, very enjoyable, and I like doing all of it. Playing, writing, composing, arranging for myself or for others, and all of it I find very, 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 very enjoyable.
Born in New York City in 1907, Carter was the only son and the youngest of 3 children in his family. He grew up in one of the roughest Manhattan neighborhoods at that time, San Juan Hill. His formal education ceased after the 8th grade. His mother taught him piano, and through his cousin Theodore Bennett and Barbara Miley, a neighbor who played with Duke Ellington, Carter developed an interest in the trumpet. Mostly self-taught, Carter saved for months and bought a trumpet at a pawn shop when he was 13. But when he failed to master it after a weekend's effort, he traded it for a C melody saxophone having been told, erroneously, that instrument was easier to learn before settling on alto saxophone.
Well, of course, it was Frankie Trumper who at the time played the C melody saxophone, and I think when I first heard him play it, I'd never heard it before, you know.
In the 1920s, he performed with June Clark, Billy Page, and Earl Hines. Then toured as a member of the Wilberforce Collegians led by Horace Henderson. He appeared on record for the first time in 1927 as a member of Charlie Johnson's Paradise 10. He returned to the Collegians and became their band leader through 1929, including a performance at the Savoy Ballroom in New York City. In 1930 and 1931, he worked for the Fletcher Henderson Band as saxophonist and arranger. He left Henderson to take Don Redman's former job as leader of McKinney's Cotton Pickers in Detroit. In 1932, he formed a band in New York City that included Chu Berry, Sid Catlett, Cozy Cole, Bill Coleman, Ben Webster, Dickie Wells, and Teddy Wilson. Carter's arrangements were complex. Among the most significant were Keep a Song in Your Soul, written for Henderson in 1930. and Lonesome Nights, and Symphony in Reefs from 1933, both of which showed Carter's writing for saxophones. By the early 1930s, he and Johnny Hodges were considered the leading alto saxophonists. Carter also became a leading trumpet soloist, having rediscovered the instrument. He recorded extensively on trumpet in the 1930s. Carter's short-lived orchestra played the Harlem Club in New York, but only recorded a handful of records for Columbia, OK, and Vocalion. The OK sides were issued under the name The Chocolate Dandies.
The first one that I knew of, so someone said, but it wasn't there. It was actually in Holland. Because in the summer of 1937, I played in Holland for 3 months, and I had an orchestra there. Well, frankly, that's the thing that makes it a little less difficult. The fact that the embouchures are different. So one embouchure doesn't necessarily disturb the other. But the main thing is that you're going to be able to devote equal time to each instrument. If you're going to practice a couple of hours on the saxophone, you've got to practice a couple of hours on the trumpet. And at night when you're in the bandstand, if you're going to play the saxophone, you've got to play the trumpet quite a lot too, or else use it or lose it. The old thing.
In 1933, Carter participated in sessions with British band leader Spike Hughes, who went to New York City to organize recordings with prominent African-American musicians. The musicians were from Carter's band and included Red Allen, Dickie Wells, Wayman Carver, Coleman Hawkins, J.C. Higginbotham, and Cho Berry.
There were no alto players around. I think Johnny Hodges started shortly after that with Duke Ellington.
Leonard Fields.
Yes, but he wasn't a stylist, but he had a great facility on the instrument. He was like a virtuoso, really. But he was no one after whom I could pattern. something. But I don't know, there weren't that many around. That's why I marvel at Coleman Hawkins. I don't know where he got it from, because there were no tenor players around. None that I remember. Well, there was Happy Caldwell. If some of you jazz historians might recognize that name. There's Happy Caldwell, and of course he was in a considerably different bag than Hawkins developed.
Carter moved to London and spent 2 years as arranger for the BBC Big Band. In England, France, and Scandinavia, he recorded with local musicians, and he took his band to the Netherlands. In these settings, Carter played trumpet, clarinet, piano, alto, and tenor saxophone, and provided occasional vocals. In 1938, he returned to America and found regular work leading his band at the Savoy Ballroom in Harlem through 1941.
Well, I don't know. I can't take credit for having started any of that. I'm sure there were many other people doing it as well, maybe even better, and maybe earlier. But if somebody that sort of following the history of the music claim this, I won't dispute it. But I don't know.
In the middle 1940s, he made Los Angeles his home, forming his last big band, which at times included J.J. Johnson, Max Roach, and Miles Davis. With the exception of occasional concerts, performing with jazz at the Philharmonic, and recording, Carter ceased working as a touring big band leader. Los Angeles provided him many opportunities for studio work, and these dominated his time during the next decades. He wrote music and arrangements for television and films, such as Stormy Weather in 1943, and wrote arrangements for vocalists such as Louis Armstrong, Ray Charles, Ella Fitzgerald, Peggy Lee, and Sarah Vaughan.
I have worked a lot, as you say, in the movies. I've worked very little in the movies. I've worked considerably in the background doing film music. I quit the Hollywood scene when they refused to give me a leading man part. Opposite Lena Horne.
Just you, Ben.
For some reason they didn't think I was the type. But it was very interesting what I had to do there, and I worked on some good projects, and I had good opportunity to. The interesting thing about writing film music, is that in the process of writing for a particular assignment, you come across a lot of things that you would not otherwise have written, in addition for what you're writing as thematic material for the film. And I have some things that I play now, that things I would not have written had I not been doing, film music. And in addition to that, things that I wrote specifically for the film also.
On something of a comeback in the 1970s, Carter picked up his saxophone again and toured the Middle East, courtesy of the U.S. State Department. He began making annual visits to Europe and Japan. In 1969, Carter was persuaded to spend a weekend at Princeton University by Morrow Berger, a sociology professor at Princeton, who wrote about jazz. This led to a new outlet for Carter's talent, teaching. For the next 9 years, he visited Princeton 5 times, most of them brief stays, except for one in 1973 when he spent a semester there as a visiting professor. In 1974, Princeton gave him an honorary doctorate. He conducted teaching at workshops and seminars at several other universities and was a visiting lecturer at Harvard for a week in 1987. Carter had an unusually long career and was perhaps the only musician to have recorded in 8 different decades. Having started a career in music before music was electronically recorded, Carter remained a musician, arranger, and composer until he retired from performing in 1997.
Thank you very much. Mr. Carter, we share a mutual interest.
We do indeed.
We do, yes.
We share music.
Yes, we share music, that's for once.
That's for starters.
Just for starters, yes.
Right.
But we share also the fact that you are a songwriter.
Of sorts.
Of sorts. Don't call it of sorts.
Well, I
you
mean,
know?
I write some songs, yes.
Yes, you write some wonderful songs, and I am a singer. I recorded some of your songs.
And I'm very happy that you did. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In 1998, he was honored at the 3rd Annual Awards Gala and Concert at Lincoln Center. He received the Jazz at Lincoln Center Award for Artistic Excellence, and his music was performed by the Lincoln Center Jazz Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis, Diana Krall, and Bobby Short. Carter, who died in Los Angeles at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center on July 12, 2003, from complications of bronchitis at the age of 95, had once said, "I don't know that I've made any real contribution." A modest Carter stated, "I've done what I've set out to do. That was have fun with the music, enjoy it, perform it, listen to it, and I have, to my satisfaction, achieved much that I had not even thought of."
That Mr. Carter puts down very clearly for anybody in sight is that you work on your music, you don't form a lot of opinions about your place in history or whatever. You just do the very best you can, keep your mind together, and that is a secret for survival that many of us to this day hold as our standard for how to do it, how to survive in this business. It's a tough business in a tough world. And he's done it with the utmost indignity and grace, and his sights are always set, in my mind, his sights are always set very high on musical goals.
On the awards and honors of Benny Carter. In the summer of 1989, the Classical Jazz series of concerts at New York's Lincoln Center celebrated Carter's 82nd birthday with a set of his songs sung by Ernestine Anderson and Sylvia Sims. In the same week, at the Chicago Jazz Festival, he presented a recreation of his Further Definition album using some of the original musicians.
Of course, I played with Coleman in the very early 30s and the late 20s. We sat by side in the Fletcher Henderson Orchestra. Let's see, was there anyone else in that group that I played with before? I don't think so. I'd never played with Phil Woods. I'd never played with Phil Rouse. Never played with cello. I'd never played with Dick Kirk on the piano. I'd never played with Papa Joe Jones. I'd never played with Jimmy Garrison. Oh, but I had played with John Collins. John Collins was a member of a sextet that I had in 1941. And another one of the members of that sextet was Dizzy Gillespie. Sure, I enjoyed it. Particularly was interesting about that because Bob Field, who was a producer on that, had an idea of recreating a couple of things that Coleman and I had done in Paris in 1937 with two French players. They were considered the #1 altoist and tenor player. Alex Combel on tenor and, what's his name? Recording at that time. We had Django Reinhardt on guitar with that, and had Stefan Grappelli on piano. Tommy Benford on drums and Louis Vola on bass. But when, I think when Bob Field wanted to do this recreation, I was in New York conducting, and I didn't even have an instrument with me, but he wanted to do it, and he said he could get the musicians together, and so we did it. I borrowed a horn, and we did it. I was particularly glad that we could get Phil Rouse, Phil Woods and Charlie Rouse. It was fun, really fun.
In February 1990, Carter led an all-star big band at the Lincoln Center in a concert tribute to Ella Fitzgerald. Carter was a member of the Music Advisory Panel of the National Endowment for the Arts. In 1990, Carter was named Jazz Artist of the Year in both the Downbeat and Jazz Times International Critics polls. He was inducted into the Downbeat Jazz Hall of Fame in 1977. In 1978, he was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame. In 1980, he received the Golden Score Award of the American Society of Music Arrangers and Composers. He was a Kennedy Center honoree in 1996 and received honorary doctorates from Princeton in 1974, Rutgers in 1991, Harvard in 1994, and the New England Conservatory in 1998. The National Endowment for the Arts gave Carter the NEA Jazz Masters Award for 1986. He was awarded the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1987. In 1994, he won both a Grammy Award for Prelude to a Kiss and received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2000, he was awarded the National Medal of Arts presented by President Bill Clinton. In 2016, the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History made Carter the focus of its Jazz Appreciation Month celebration and featured him on the 2016 Jam poster from the National Museum of American History. Carter won 2 Grammy Awards and was nominated 9 times for Best Background Arrangement, Behind Vocalist or Instrumentalist, Best Jazz Instrumental Performance, Group Swing Reunion Nomination, Lifetime Achievement Award, Best Instrumental Composition, Central City Sketches, Best Large Jazz Ensemble Performance, Harlem Renaissance, Best Instrumental Composition, Harlem Renaissance Suite, Best Jazz Instrumental Solo, The Mo' I See You, Best Instrumental Composition, Elegy in Blue, Best Jazz Instrumental Performance, Individual or Group, Elegy in Blue, and the Best Jazz Instrumental Solo, Prelude to a Kiss. On the songs composed by Benny Carter, Blues in My Heart, released in 1931 with Irving Mills. When Lights Are Low, in 1936 with Spencer Williams. Cow Cow Boogie, Kuma T-E-E-I, in 1942 with Don Ray and Gene the Paul. Key Largo, in 1948 with Carl Swestov, Lee Worth. Rock Me to Sleep in 1950 with Paul Vandervoort II. A Kiss from You in 1964 with Johnny Mercer. Only Trust Your Heart in 1964 with Sami Khan.
Never trust the stars when you're about to fall in love. Look for hidden signs before you start to sigh. Never trust the mood when you're about to taste his kiss. He knows all the lines and he knows how to lie. Just wait for a night when the skies are all bare. Then if you still care, never trust your dream when you're about to fall in love, for your dream will quickly fall apart. So if you're smart, really smart, only trust your heart.
As Sideman with Louis Belson, Skin Deep Norgren in 1953 with DZ Gillespie. Carter received numerous accolades. In 1978, Carter was invited to the White House to lead a band as part of President Jimmy Carter's commemoration of the Newport Jazz Festival's 25th anniversary. In 1982, when Carter turned 75, New York's WKCR radio station commemorated his birthday by playing his music constantly for 177 hours. Carter received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1987 from the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. In 1994, he won a Grammy for Elegy in Blue. In 1996, Carter was among 5 recipients of the Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C. That same year, the lauded documentary on Carter, Symphony in Riffs, was released on home video. In 2000, he was presented with the National Medal of Art by President Bill Clinton. Carter was married 5 times, with 3 of the marriages ending in divorce. In 1979, he married his 5th wife, Hilma Olila Aarons, whom he met in 1940 when she went to the Savoy Ballroom to hear his band. Carter was survived by a wife, his daughter, granddaughter, and great-grandchild. To say that Benny Carter had a remarkable and productive career would be an extreme understatement. As an altoist, arranger, composer, band leader, and occasional trumpeter, Carter was at the top of his field since at least 1928. And in the late 90s, Carter was as strong an altoist at the age of 90 as he was in 1936 when he was merely 28.
Could I add a couple of words in here to this? I never think of Benny as elderly, and the reason is because he's always totally present. Whenever I call him up on the phone, or we're traveling or working together, he's one of the guys. He's right there. He knows everything that's going on with the band. He understands every aspect of the musicians' attitudes, and the creativity is something that you don't really turn on and off like a faucet. It doesn't just sort of, you leave it alone and you let it happen. You have to flow with creativity.
His gradually evolving style did not change much through the decades, but neither did it become at all stale or predictable, except in its excellence. Benny Carter was a major figure in every decade of the 20th century since the 1920s, and his consistency and longevity were unprecedented. Benny Carter has been as admired as virtually any saxophonist in jazz. As a trumpeter, although he only occasionally played the instrument, he achieved a rich tone and had a highly personal and original style. The body of work this gentle giant left behind points to one of the most influential jazzmen in history. Although his alto playing brought him the most acclaim, his skill in composing and arranging straight-ahead, swinging jazz music is unparalleled in history. The class, style, and mild-mannered, humble demeanor of Benny Carter helped make a lady out of once frowned-upon and forbidden music. Musicians referred to him simply as King Carter, while fans and critics polls regularly voted him top alto saxophonist. When President Clinton presented him with the U.S. National Medal of Arts, he said, "Benny Carter, your entire life has been a great riff. to the human spirit. It is hard to think of another jazz performer who also embodied the uplifting values of creative expression, and for whom there was such wide-ranging respect and admiration. His playing possessed a natural grace, and his orchestrations were shapely and refined, qualities delivered consistently during 8 decades of performance and composition. More remarkably, Carter was among the very few instrumentalists whose skills as saxophonist and clarinetist were matched by his prowess on the trumpet. As Duke Ellington said, "I stand in awe of his proficiency." And it is not surprising that in a music populated by royalty, Benny Carter is still known to his fellow musicians as King. A musician whose recording career extended from the 78 era through LPs and well into the time of CDs, Benny Carter lived to see his own website designed by the scholars Ade and Lawrence Berger, sons of Moreau Berger. As Duke Ellington once wrote, open quote, "The problem of expressing the contributions that Benny Carter has made to popular music is so tremendous. It completely phases me. So extraordinary. A musician is he." Close quote. This week's edition of People in History salutes a luminary musician who will forever deserve some accolades and be remembered as much for his composing skills as his playing. His name, Bennett Lester Carter. This week's edition of People in History was scripted and sourced by Jane Uwa and produced by Joseph Manasseh. Among useful sites include biography.com, allmusic.com, and notablebiographies.com, amongst others. My name is Xavier Robert.